we will start having some plans for contingency plans as we're talking about these public meetings that we're going to be having in the future. This is something that's on the forefront of our minds right now, is COVID restrictions and things like that. So I think it's something that we should kind of keep in the back of our mind as we're moving forward. So that's probably a good place to kind of start off the meeting. I think I'll follow the agenda that John had sent out.
Can I ask a question relative to what you just
Of course, Bruce, yeah.
said? Is there what's the source of the requirement that the meetings be public, and in the event of COVID not abating, is there any way that the city council can change that so we could find a way of doing this, even in terms of a public meeting via Zoom, as a way of coping with the reality? Or is this a state law that we're facing?
John, you had looked into this a little bit today. I
Bruce,
believe that it's state law.
I was thinking about that.
Go ahead, John.
I think a workaround, should it come to pass that we have to have our public meetings via Zoom, what we should do is approach the city and ask if we can use the common council chamber, because that's all rigged for sound and video. And they just started doing their common council meetings that way again, and they actually broadcast them live on YouTube. And there's a part of that they can open up where the public can interact with the people. There's a comment section on a sidebar as far as that goes. So maybe one or two of us could actually go to the common council chamber and make sure it's all set up. And if we have to have these public meetings virtually instead of in person, the people who are at the council chamber can, do the presentations and put up the slides of our proposed districts and stuff. And then the rest of the public can be invited through the city's YouTube channel to interact with us and actually have a public meeting where there's two-way conversation instead of just watching a video of something that happens.
There are options that we could explore if need be. Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Yeah, if need be, absolutely. I think we have options. And regardless if we need to go strictly virtual, which I don't think that we would have to, hopefully by this point we'll get things better under control. But I think we were speaking last time, I know I'll just speak for myself, that I think that there has to be a virtual component, even if we are doing in public meetings, just, to provide that element of safety. And hopefully the city will be able to provide us with the technology to be able to do that. But it just creates increased accessibility to also be able to do it virtually, even if we are meeting in person. So it's something we're gonna have to look into anyway. So it's good to have a contingency plan around that just in case. Jeff, do you know about, like where this comes from in terms of like the state and kind of what we need to be looking out for in terms of especially these, like what I consider like these more informal working meetings? We were always told they had to be public and, all of this. And we've used the workaround these last couple meetings saying they were informal meetings, but, I don't really know all that much about it. I didn't know if you had any insight.
I'll check on the state open meetings law tomorrow morning and let you know. But I think, it's also important that whatever the city has adapted or is either more strict or has alternatives, really ought to be the one that's followed pursuant to state law.
Okay.
I'll check on that.
Okay.
I was looking at it today too. I was reading our ordinance pretty closely, and part of it says, this paragraph does not prohibit commission staff, legal counsel, and consultants retained by the commission that is otherwise permitted by state and city open meeting requirements. So I can turn back and see it's section 60 something. Section 62-6, subparagraph A, number 3. But that, what I got out of that is we can have these meetings informally, whatever we want to call it, and still conduct our work, but not be beholden to the open meeting requirements. So I think that's our out as far as whether or not these meetings, these particular meetings where we're actually doing work virtually need to be public. Obviously, if we were sitting in the iLab and there was no COVID and somebody walked in from the public, we would certainly welcome them and let them sit in the corner and watch us. But I think that section I just read covers us as far as getting work done. Our public hearings have to be public. We know that. So, but I think we're good. I think it was written into the ordinance that we're okay doing this.
Okay. So approval of minutes from last time. I don't even know if like we're doing an informal meeting if we have to vote, but maybe we'll just run it like we would if we were sitting in the iLab. So did everyone get the minutes and have a chance to look over if you weren't able to see them before?
Yes, indeed. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting?
So moved with any necessary correction.
Melody, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Bruce. Okay, all in favor of approving minutes from last meeting? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so passed. Okay. Status updates. John and I did a podcast with Dustin Zarni last week. It's up and live now. He also posted the video to Facebook. So I don't know if anyone saw that. We also have another interview with WRVO, like an NPR tomorrow. And so I don't know if John, if you wanted to say anything else on that, or if we wanted to field like other things from the rest of the group on what we want to convey.
I just wanted to put it out there that we're putting ourselves out there and trying to get our message out in the media. That's Dustin and this reporter from WRVO are the only ones that have contacted us to this point. So we're just jumping on the opportunity to get our names out there.
You said they're the only. You said they're the only two that contacted you so far was Dustin and WRVO, the religious station.
WRVO is a public radio, like PBS.
Yeah, but where is it at? Where, right, but where is it at? Is it in a little trailer out in Kirkville Road? Oh, you don't know where it is. Oh, okay.
No, Melody,
Anyway.
WRVO is out of SUNY Oswego.
Okay, thank you. Now I got a question on y'all, and I just want you to keep this in mind. I'm gonna be the devil's advocate here, but maybe not. Maybe I'm just a person that to say it. When you do get, as more of these things come to fruition, if more of these things happen and people ask, you know, the redistricting committee to come on board and explain, can we do something, or can we make it a commitment or a promise or whatever to have someone of color also available? They don't have to speak, even though they should, and they would probably want to, but they have to show the community that this is more than just, you know, European Americans who are handling this. Am I right or am I wrong in just putting that out there?
Perception is everything.
Yeah.
I would agree with that statement.
I do
I think
100%. I hate doing interviews. Anybody that wants to do them instead of me is more than welcome.
No, it's not about that. Yeah, that's not what I'm saying, John. That you're probably one of the best. You're more knowledgeable than I. So it's not bad. It's about just letting people know, as whoever said perception is everything is absolutely 100% correct. In my mind's eye. They have to
I
Absolutely, you're 100% correct.
So Melody, is that something that you have interest in for, you know, the next interview that comes out? Would that be something that you would like to be a part of?
Well, yeah, I would be available. If I'm available, I would love to, but you have other people who are very well spoken. But yes, if it fits my schedule, I'd be more than glad to be a participant.
Okay. I think that it's wise. I mean, I know we had talked last time that, you know, to have a clear voice from from John and I, but, you know, I don't necessarily just like want to be, I don't at all want to be like the face of this. And I think that it's really important that we have, all of us included.
I
As
think
I
it's
was
more
thinking,
important. The reason I bring it up is because as we get more and more interest in redistricting, I'm going to be attending a webinar, I think on Monday with my sorority, looking at the New York State redistricting and that kind of things, and their commission. And anyway, so as more and more stuff comes out, I want to just make sure that, you know, that it shows full representation, not on us. I don't think that it's something that we're lacking, but I think that it's something that we ought to make sure that we put out there.
that we're showing,
I'm off
yes.
the soapbox. I'm off the soapbox.
No, I think that it's a point well taken, and I agree. I spoke to Jihan today in regards to our socials, and I think that even, you know, the media trickle has been slow so far, and so I think this can combine with some of the education that we're doing, that we're trying to do a little bit on the socials, but I think like it's not a fully fleshed out idea, but I was thinking like having all of us like do even just like 10-second clips where we're like introducing ourselves, like talking about
good
like
idea.
why
Yeah.
we wanted to join or like what this means to us, communities of interest, like, and then we can make fun little reels and things and like, and be putting them on our socials. And I think that that's another way to gain interest, to have people see what it is that we're doing and all the members that are on here. So I
Yeah.
was thinking that that would be something that we could do, and I could send out like an instruction sheet or like questions that we all answer, and then Jihan can put all that footage together and make a bunch of different reels.
Oh, I think that's an excellent idea. That's good thinking there, Mal. Excellent idea.
Okay. All right, perfect. So we will get going in that, and it can just be like cell phone videos, you know. So we can go from there. Okay. All right. So I think the next topic is just on the meeting dates. Last time we had some discussion on like meeting locations, and we had some people that were going to reach out. So I'm looking for updates on that. And I think we have like a little graphic around, you know, maybe some timetables and things like that. So John, do you want to, I think you were on the committee to kind of start looking for locations. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Sure. I'm still going with the school district as our best bet as far as some of our public meetings. If any other venues open up to us, you know, it's a bad week to try and secure public spaces. I think we're gonna have to wait a little late for this Omicron to subside a little bit before we formally start asking for these public spaces, because right now I'm sure the answer is probably not going to be what we want. That doesn't mean, I mean, Tony reached out to the superintendent and he's on board with us using the schools. The schools are all over the city. I think we can get around the whole city into each of the districts that way, but I think we should let the schools get back to normal in the next, hopefully, week or so. What they're telling my wife and daughter at the school they teach at is this Omicron supposed to peak on January 9th. So maybe the week after that, when they start getting back to normal operations, we can reach out and actually secure some dates for our first set of public meetings.
Yeah, the superintendent was very supportive of our idea or
You're selling stuff? You're selling stuff?
Hello?
Oh, they're on, they don't know that they're not muted. Yeah, whoever that is.
Okay.
I'm in the middle of a cell phone conversation. So that's why I'm over there, okay.
Okay, so anyway, so he was very supportive. He, as John just said, asked that we wait until actually February to make our requests. But, you know, he obviously will let his director of facilities know that we're putting in this request. And I think that these would be, you know, good venues to have meetings. So that, you know, that's my experience and my point.
Okay, I just want to talk a little bit because I did reach out to some churches. My church being one of the ones that I reached out to as well. And it's on the south side and it's
Which
and
church
it's
is that?
big-
Melanie?
Hops Memorial.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it's at 1110 South State Street. We can seat about 700 people.
Oh, yeah.
Prior COVID. Okay, now with anything happening during this whole COVID, because you know, I talked to my doctor is very funny. And when I went to get my booster, I said, oh, now I can take this and take it over to Staples and get it sealed. And she looks at me and she goes, oh no, there'll be more. Don't seal it up. Okay, so I believed her. And then here came Omicron. And then so I believe, as she's telling me, this virus is here to stay. Don't be thinking that it's going to ever be over. She's a physician. She's a scientist. I'm going to go with her. Okay. There's always it's a virus. There'll be variants, that kind of thing. That being said, when we do Sunday service, everybody who comes through that door has to be flashed, you know, for temps. And then we have masks and all that stuff. So if we're going to use whatever venue we use, be it the school district, the churches, the centers, are we going to be responsible for having people there to do that testing for temperatures and then to have masks and then to have gloves if necessary and then also to have, you know, sanitizer? I'm of the impression, and I was glad that you guys were talking about virtual meetings, because that may be the way this has to go. And so that's something that we also might want to put in our little pipe and try to look at that, because that's like I'm going to this redistricting thing for the state to see how are they going to do this. You know, if we're supposed to have these public meetings, I'm going to be honest and tell you, I don't go public stuff. Okay,
Yeah,
because I'm of
just-
a certain age and I got you want to say something there?
Yeah, just to
Sarah?
let you know, the state commission did hold in-person hearings in November and early December. Their meeting yesterday was held via Zoom, so they are not, but most of their hearings were held via Zoom because it was a safe period in November and early December. They did go on the road, and they also made their hearings both in person and over Zoom. So the state seems to be moving more towards Zoom meetings, even though the state constitution required a hearing in Syracuse, Rochester, Buffalo. They were able to focus the Zoom hearings on specific cities or counties without actually being there. And of course, that opens it up, as any meeting would, to anybody who wanted to speak. So let's say in Syracuse, if we hold a hearing in one area, via Zoom, others from around the city might also join in, but I don't see a problem with that.
Okay, we don't see a problem with doing Zoom. So, okay, thank you. That helps me, because I was like, I didn't know how we were going to handle that.
But you said some other things though that I was thinking about, Melody, and one of those things was like, if we do have these meetings, these public meetings, like who will be responsible for, if that's still a requirement?
Right.
And, you know, temperature testing and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, we should probably get some clarification on that.
I'd like to interject at this point. The CDC at some point said that they really don't need to do temperature checks. They're just not indicative of anything going on. The most important thing is to be sure that everybody is masked and that there's enough hand sanitizer for people to do their hands, and that there's social distancing. So the spot has to be big enough where you could have, if you're in the same pod with somebody, then yes, you can sit together.
Right.
But separating people out by, 2-3 chairs, that type of thing would be the most important. So social distancing masks and hand sanitizer, if you're gonna do that in public.
And Maritza, I'm going to just tell you because, thank you for the conversation we had earlier in the day. I have to talk to you about that as well.
Mhm.
But I'm going to be honest and tell you, I ain't going to be there. Okay. Because I'm just not going to take a chance. I'm in my 60s. I have a sister with immune compromised situations. I have pre-existing conditions. And from my understanding, from what I can read, even though what the CDC says, this thing is so virulent that, you can be 13 feet away from me and cough or whatever, and I can think I'm safe, and that ain't the deal. And you don't have to respond to that. I'm just saying that's how.
Okay, no,
Yeah.
I understand your feelings completely. I mean, we have staff members who are just like really, really anxious about coming into work, period.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them. We used to, kids are germ factories. That's what we always used to say, literally. So, you've got a bunch of kids, you have a bunch of adults who don't know how to properly wear a mask or counsel kids on how to wear a mask.
Right.
So, we're having an outbreak like there's no tomorrow. But, if people use the proper precautions, you should be safe, especially if you're fully vaccinated.
So what we're
But,
saying, if we were to have a public,
It's everybody's choice what they want to do, essentially.
right. So if we were to have a public meeting where we follow CDC guidelines, that's what I want to get back to, is that who's going to monitor that? Are we responsible for that as the commissioners, or does the city come through and put people in place? And sir, you might want to jump in because you knew about the state. You said there were some public meetings. How did they do that? I'm very interested in finding out how they did that.
They used Facebook, and they had some kind of a Zoom-like account. I could find out, but they basically used a Facebook type atmosphere, and they had people dial in, Zoom in. It wasn't Zoom itself, because the hearings were they had the commission members on screen, not the commission members and the entire public. And then when someone wanted to testify, they had somebody queue them up and then bring the testifiers into the meeting. So
Okay.
I'll send a note to the director of the state commission tomorrow and ask how they did it, and hope and perhaps the city can help arrange for this.
And also what Dr. Maritza said about following CDC guidelines. If we can have public meetings, who's gonna be responsible for monitoring that? I mean, I don't feel very comfortable in telling a grown person, put your mask on. And the reason why I don't feel comfortable is not that it's not the wrong thing to say. I'm 5'2", ain't nobody, and I'm gonna be real blunt here, I ain't having nobody whoop my tail.
I think with New York State, with Governor Hochul,
Hochul.
thank you very much. My brain is like COVID fried after today. But with her mandate that masks be worn in large gatherings, you could always put a sign up, mask is required to enter. And self-police people, and if they don't want to wear their mask, they can either be politely asked to leave, or politely asked to socially distance themselves from everybody else if they insist on staying. But with her directive, I think we have a good chance of saying to people, you have to have a mask to come in.
Okay, I get that. I understand that. Yeah, go right ahead, sweetheart.
Oh, I mean, I think her point is well taken, because in the community, there are plenty of signs that state that, and people are still doing what they want
Exactly.
anyway. So,
Mhm.
I mean,
know.
and it can be, I mean, I personally have no problem speaking up, but I think the unpredictability of people in this time is cause for
Big
concern. Okay,
Mhm.
so, I mean, it's like, certainly I have no problem saying, you know, this is, you need to do this, you need to do that, whatever, but there are people who are gonna resist no matter what. So,
Yeah.
and then it's just, you're right, the option should be, you can either social distance or you can leave or whatever, but you need to practice some kind of responsibility. I think we need, that needs
Right.
to be said. I mean, that's my opinion, so.
Mm-hmm.
But
So there's there's also chat going on within the chat bubble, because there's some good points that are being made. Where in public buildings, the laws are still what they are right now, that we have to mask up. And Graham brings up a good point that we're talking about something that's happening in March. And as we have learned the past 2 years, we can never predict kind of like exactly what's going to be happening and what it's going to look like. And so to me, I think that we can cautiously and optimistically plan for some sort of in-person meeting right now and see what it looks like. We're still going to have a virtual component to it. And as we move on, I think that these conversations on how will we enforce the mask, how will we do that, we can have more of those conversations. We can also include the city and see what resources they have to
Okay.
public meetings as well. So I think that these are worthwhile conversations to keep in our mind as we move forward. But I do think that it is important to kind of get some of the dates nailed down and some of the locations if we are going to have them. Tony, you had mentioned that the superintendent wanted to wait until about February for us to reserve or to request. I don't know if I heard that correctly. And so that is tough if we do have to kind of wait till February, because that only gives us a month to really kind of promote and get everything nailed down. So is that what I heard, Tony, that he's wanting us to wait till February to request?
Yeah, to put in the paperwork for those, but we could, in the meantime, identify, we'd like to have them in the 5 high schools, let's say, as an example.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
So maybe
drawing
we
the
could do like a
building
mix.
permits. Yeah, drawing the building permits isn't an issue. It's just figuring out the dates you want to do them and keeping in mind the February break in schools.
Right.
a good one.
That is honestly, that's one of my top priorities right now, is just getting those dates nailed down. I think is my top priority, just so that then we can start planning. Then we can actually start thinking about like, okay, like what are the dates? What locations are available for these dates? Let's nail those down. What precautions do we need for those locations? So to me, it's just like, then we can go down the operating procedure here. So John, you had put together like a little visual of a loose timeline that we can kind of start to think about in terms of these dates for the public meetings. I know, Jihan, you have the graphic. If you wanted to screen share, and John, you can kind of explain
I
what some of your
lost
thinking
you there
was.
for a second, Molly.
Oh.
Okay,
So John, why don't you
um,
go through this?
I'm off mute, right?
Yep.
Sure. I need to see things a little more visually than the typed out stuff in our ordinance. So I put this slide together. Sorry, it's terrible. I kind of murdered the template, but it's our first set of public hearings. The 5 public hearings have to take place between March 1st and May 1st, 2022. And if we want to start scheduling dates for those tonight, that's great. After May 1st, we go down and to the right a little bit. I'm proposing sometime during the week of May 1st to May 8th, whatever's good, we get together. And that's where we're gonna adopt our preliminary plan. Once the preliminary plan is adopted and agreed on by everybody on the commission, then we have to have 5 more public hearings. And the time frame I put out there is May 9th to June 27th. So we'll have 5 more public hearings in that time frame. After the 5 public hearings where we present our preliminary plan and take feedback, we move down to the right a little bit. We're gonna get together and it's a 1-week time frame. It's really June 27th to July 1st. Sometime we'll get together, whether we have to have 1 or 2 meetings, but adopt our final plan. And from there, we release it to the public. And I threw out July 4th as a date to release it, just because of the symbolic nature of it. We could just do a social media / press release, whatever, on July 4th. But once we release our final plan, there's a 14-day public comment period built into the ordinance. I have that from July 5th to July 19th, where the public will comment and tell us what they think of our final plan. And then sometime in the 10-day time frame after our public comment period closes, we have to have two more public hearings, 1 north of 690, 1 south of 690. And we can do that. We can schedule those between July 19th and July 29th of 2022. I believe that's a week. And then August 1st is our date to submit our plan, tweaked as it is, to the Common Council. And then they take it from there. And if they don't like it, they'll send it back to us. The final plan has to be adopted by October 1st. And that's a, August to October seems like a long time, but that has to go through the 2-week period of getting it on the council agenda. The council needs to consider it, and then run it through all their, whatever they do to get it to a voting. So they probably won't even be voting on it until September, at the earliest of 2022. So.
Okay.
Okay,
Good
so
job,
that's-
John. Good, good.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to everyone? I had to see it visually
Mhm.
instead of trying to conceptualize it from reading it. But if everybody's okay with those timeframes, and we can get more granular and select meeting times later. But I think we should put that time frame, clean it up a little bit so it doesn't look so horrible, and blast it out in our social medias and do a press release saying this is how we're going to conduct the business of redistricting. So,
Right, I think I think you did a good job. The only thing, oh, I forgot my question. It'll come back to me. Sorry, I'm old.
No, you're not.
Thank you. That's what friends do.
Age is just a number.
Yes, ma'am. But I think this is a good job, John. This is a good job. I needed to see it visually too, so I can appreciate that. 'Cause
No,
I'm
that was,
needed to
yeah.
see it visually as well.
I agree
Yeah.
with you. Very visual. It's good to have the timeline. I asked if this was on the shared Google Drive, this timeline.
It is not, looks like we just sent it in here, but we will throw it on the Google Drive as well. John just made this today. So it was really just kind of for our meeting today. And as Graham is pointing out in the chat, Jeff, you had once said that this was one of the first things that we should do is kind of get together a timeline. And so
Right.
we're interested in some of your thoughts on what this looks like and if we have, if we're doing ourselves any favors or if there's things that we should look at and adjust.
Is he still with us?
I think you want Jeff.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. The only
Oh.
thing I suggest, John, did you get a chance to run any holidays or sort of work days we can't use in this calendar? I mean, it looks as if there's enough wiggle room here because there are, there aren't, except for the release dates, July 4th, we'd really want to do the plan. Let me just check a calendar. July 4th is on a
Monday.
Monday. So, the plan, I don't have the statute in front of me. Can we release the plan, let's say on July 5th? I mean, it's not realistic to release a plan on a federal holiday.
I figured I just threw it out there for the, the wow factor, but no, I think July 5th is the better date myself. I just, like I said, I was just being dramatic.
Yeah, and then if any of the other days here are Sunday or are weekend days, we just have to adjust it in case August 1st or any of these other days here are weekends. We just have to check, and that just would mean modification to a Friday or before or a Monday after in case any of these days are on a weekend.
Might not a weekend meeting maybe draw in some more people if you held it in a kind of central location?
Well, we could do a Saturday meeting. Thoughts on Sunday meetings? They're usually not held on Sundays. Although
yeah, no.
actually, the New York State Commission did hold 2 virtual hearings via Zoom on Sundays, and they were moderately attended. So and any day is really game.
I just appreciate, John, you doing this, taking the time to do this. And Jeff, I also appreciate your input. Because as we go through the year, we already have dates that we have set aside for personal time, for family time, working in school things. So this is really a good thing to have. And I'm just going to say this, if there are things that don't work per our schedule, is there a minimum number of commissioners that must be present at everything? And I should know this if I read the ordinance.
It's 9. We have to have 9 for a quorum.
Okay. So we need to look at this and really look at our schedules and get back. If this is the timeline we're going to use, we need to get back to you as soon as possible, correct?
I mean, I think that like the timeline, I mean, certain things, as we're saying, certain things just have to happen within certain ranges. Like we have to have these first set of meetings between March and May. So like the timeline itself, like that is so much more flexible. To me, I'm more concerned about like the individual dates for public hearings, and that we would really have to be very mindful of kind of scheduling with everyone to make sure that at least 9 of us are at every meeting and that we can all do that.
Yes,
So
ma'am,
that's
yes.
probably the one that will be challenging, is hammering out those individual dates.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
August 1st is a Monday. Just that's our.
Okay.
Would you be doing that via a doodle poll so that people can kind of check off what meeting dates they'll be available?
We can. Yeah, we can.
That would make your tally easy. People just sign up for the dates they're available. You hit 9, boom, that's the date.
Yeah, I think that as we're talking, as you know, when Jeff was talking about like weekend meetings and things like that, I think we can make sure that we have a mix of everything, because I do think that it's really important that like we have an evening meeting, we have a daytime meeting, we do have like a weekend meeting, like kind of scattered throughout so that it's hitting all those different kinds of availability for the public. So we can make sure that we have at least one in kind of every category somewhere in the city. So even if it's not, you know, in District 2, you know, if someone from District 2 can go to another meeting if it's a better time for them. It won't be really clear about that.
So we're talking about attendance that's actual physical, not virtual.
Yeah, I mean, it would be both, but yeah, attendance for the, I think we have to be there in person as the rules state right now, for it to be like legit.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. But we'll see if that changes. You know, if things don't kind of die down, I'm sure things
Oh,
would change in terms of the guidance.
the state commission members met via Zoom. They did not all have to be at the meetings. And when they took their votes on plans yesterday, the meeting was via Zoom.
Mm,
So
okay.
I'll check into that a bit.
Okay. All right, so, we can look, well, let's get the first 5 dates settled, and we can have Jihan send out the doodle poll, and we'll put in like a random sampling of, some dates, that would be good, throughout the week, the weekend, evenings, and you guys just kind of put in what you can make work, and we'll go with, what seems to be best for the most amount of people. And then we can kind of go from there, and then we can start advertising those dates as well, and then we can get the locations booked.
I think we have to check to make sure that Josh Simons, who's making the maps, can come to the meetings. And he has multiple levels
Point.
in our office, so two more points. Sometimes of the year, or if one community finds itself routinely in a time of year where it's harder to attend because of holidays or religious commitments and so on, there might be a consequence of that. We have to be generally commissions have to be sensitive to not having one community only have meetings in summer holiday months or whatever might be the realistic fact of the matter. But they argue that they're effectively excluded even though formally included. So that has to be a concern officially. And but I think you're quite right. From my view, the specific dates within each reign is the critical challenge. And if I may, one thing, one very important consequence of this conversation, I have a lot of experience in these things, is that you need a logistical plan. So that's part of what you need. You've created that fact. And that requires cooperation from others, not only the schools that will provide the location, but the police department. Because some citizens, unfortunately, become confrontational. And as do people who get on airplanes.
Mm-hmm.
And the city has to realize that part of supporting this process, which is a very admirable undertaking, in my normative point of view, involves having somebody there to ensure that people require the minimum necessary credential to attend, having been inoculated, and are orderly. So, for what it's worth.
Yeah, I just looked at the calendar also. April 17th, that week is both Easter and Passover. So that's at least 1 week where we need to be sensitive to the holiday observance schedule.
I think that's also a school break. I think school break is during that time. It spans from Good Friday all the way through the following weekend. And usually they use that time when the kids are out of school to clean up the buildings and do the things they need to do. So, if we're going to have a meeting, it'll probably be best to have it later in the day. But we could also just avoid that whole week together, which might be a better thing.
Okay, so good points all around. I think that it's important that, that Jeff and Josh, that we're able to have our consultants like available at these meetings. So like, and factoring in you guys' availability as well, that's a good point. So looking at some of that in combination to all of our availability, just because I think that that's like an important part of some of the public meetings is be able to kind of like throw up some of that map stuff that like we're already like kind of looking at, and like here's some of the census data. Like that is a really important part. People are very visual, so
Yeah.
that is good that that should almost be like a baseline of, when he could attend, and then what is good for us as well.
Yeah, this is Jeff. I put a note in the chat box that I'm unavailable on Wednesdays, except I think there's one Wednesday I am available in March, which is spring break at my law school. But generally Wednesdays are, let's see, Wednesday the 17th. I am available, but every other Wednesday until May 5th, evenings are out for me.
Okay. So we will go from there. So there will be a few things that are coming out for you. It's really important, particularly as we're not meeting in person quite yet. We'll talk about more about what we want to do about that, but we're going to be communicating a lot through email and through the Google Drive. So keep your eyes peeled for emails. We will try not to blast you too much. But once that, the doodle poll comes out, please put your availability in there and, check the ones that do work. And we can go from there. I'll also be sending out the questionnaires for the social media stuff, and you guys can be like social media influencers with your answers.
Can I also ask that Josh, Jerry, and I be added to the Google Drive? I don't think we're on
Sure.
at this point, and I'll pass along Jerry and Josh's emails in case they've not been receiving all the emails that I think I am.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay.
Okay. So it's looking like we're able to, it's looking like not only we're able to have these Zoom meetings because it's happening, even in the state, but it's even happening in our city. They're having to do that this week due to COVID. So is this okay that we kind of continue to do these meetings via Zoom? Jihan is recording. We can throw the recordings in the drive for people who are not here, but I think that it's important that we still all attend as much as we possibly can. Is that good with everyone that we still do just Zoom for right now?
Yes, that works. Yeah.
Yeah. Under what circumstances would we find that we need to be in person? What would be hypothetically the reason why we need to dispense with Zoom?
In the very beginning, Nader told us, it was summer, things were really low, around in the summer, but Nader had said that, these meetings, the guidance had just changed and they couldn't be on WebEx anymore. And that we had to be in person because they had to be public. So we weren't laboring under that,
Yeah.
understanding for a while, but, I think everything kind of changed in the last week or so. When we had meetings before via Zoom, we would just be like, oh, they're informal meetings, they're not our real meetings. But I didn't know how long we could realistically do that, but it seems like we don't have to have that workaround right now.
Okay.
Nader did send us
Sure,
something
Missy.
saying that we had to post our meeting. Is that true? Is that something we have to do?
I thought you did have to post public meetings.
Right.
Well,
So
the
I don't
common-
know.
Here's the thing, I think the Common Council, don't they post their meeting dates on the city's website?
And we do as well, when we were meeting in iLab. So the question is do we make this like an open link that people can observe? Or I think Nader had said something like, you can post the recorded videos and post them to your website, or you post your meeting minutes. So then there's that level of transparency, but I'm not even sure how this works. We can ask Nader more, but I don't know if it has to be everyone gets this open link or.
And that would be impractical. That's where I think using a Facebook or YouTube type platform where people can watch but not comment or be seen themselves works better.
Schiffer, the fact is that deliberation is much harder, not in a face-to-face situation with somebody. The legislature itself, state legislature suspended personal meetings for a year and found it less desirable to not be able to debate and exchange and interact in the same room. So you're under a critical medical, potentially risky circumstance, and you want to function, but you won't function optimally in a deliberative fashion if you're not interacting with each other in person, I think. So that doesn't have to do it. It means that you're paying a cost for giving up interacting. And we have some experience with meetings where the commission deliberates before the public, where they're watching and actually seeing lines moved and test alternative maps while they're sitting there and watching. Now that's
Wow.
turns out to be very dramatic and efficacious. It's also hard to do, but I've seen that. County did that, for example. I've seen that work.
Yeah.
Yeah, the state commission worked totally behind closed doors.
So Gerald, were those commissions that were independent like ours, or?
Well, in that case I'm mentioning, the commission was the first county commission in the state that was bipartisan, independent, and whose result went to the public without passing through the legislature. So the legislature had the capacity to comment, and the commission listened to the comments, right? They didn't ignore them. At the end of the day, they were adopted for the community when the commission approved them, not when the legislature.
I'm looking at Greg's and
Graham's comments, yeah.
their comments, and I don't know if any of you have, but I've been on Zooms where they've been hijacked, and it's not nice. You know, not only what they say when they hijack it, but also how do you get back to the meeting? You know, because everybody's been through that. So I'm in favor of what Greg's saying. You know, he doesn't think it's a good idea, and I concur. I don't think it's a good idea to have the open to meetings either.
When you say, are you talking about just the Zoom meetings or?
You talking to
Public.
me?
I'm sorry, not public. Zoom versus in person?
Right. I was thinking like these meetings that we're hosting here, there were some questions earlier today if this was still going to be like a public meeting. And we said, you know, no, it was like a working meeting, an informal meeting. So the question was raised, how are we going to, where these meetings are supposed to be public outside of like our public hearings. So for tonight, we just said, no, it's not public. We're just doing this for what we're doing. But we did say that we would bring it up and have a discussion.
One thing that, now that I'm back in the school district, that I noticed was way different from their board meetings when I was there initially, is that the board president basically says, yes, we're willing to listen to your comments, but we will not tolerate and the word isn't really tolerate, but that's the only word I can think of, tolerate these types of behaviors like personal attacks, doing all of this. Would it be a good idea to have maybe like some ground rules for that, you know, so that people don't get up and just like hijack the entire meeting? And the school board also sets a time limit on how much time a person has to present their concerns, because otherwise one person could be up there for a good half hour just chatting away, and then nobody else gets a chance to speak. So I'm not sure if, you know, I'm just throwing this out as an idea.
I think that would be worthwhile for the big public meetings, you know, having some ground rules. As far as these meetings are concerned, if we open it up, like what Jeff is saying, using a platform where there's not any interaction, they're simply witnessing what we're doing is probably for the best, because just like we did have a visitor one meeting, you know, Graham's neighbor came, and he comes to all the meetings, any public meeting, he's kind of there. You know, he just sat there. He was not interacting with us. It's really just witnessing, you know, that element of transparency is is my understanding that they wouldn't be, there's no interaction really is for these meetings.
Yeah, no, if there's no interaction, then there's no need for anything. But I'm thinking in the in-person meetings, we should have a set of guidelines so that somebody doesn't
Yes.
co-opt the entire meeting. Because that,
I agree.
having lived through the school district a number of years ago, there were people who would just co-opt the meeting. And these were like public meetings that they were having. And it just got to be annoying and nobody got anything done because everybody was talking all at once. So if we could put some decorum on that.
Maritza, is
I
that something that you would be willing to kind of get us started with and throw up like a Google Doc or something and kind of get some ideas down on paper around some of these guidelines that you have found to be really helpful or effective in hosting these public meetings that we're going to be having? Would that be something you'd be willing to start and take on?
Oh, absolutely. I'm starting it
perfect.
now on my pad. So in
Oh,
between
perfect. Thank you.
COVID, I'll be doing the ground rules.
Yeah, I know, I've been to scores of redistricting hearings over the years. I've never seen any meeting get out of hand. I've seen shows put on, like having in Brooklyn, New York, of several dozen Russian people show up in Soviet military uniforms demanding Russian districts, but I haven't seen any hearing ever get out of order. I think school boards are more visceral, down to the bone. I'm not, I just haven't seen, although there's always a first, things to get out of hand over redistricting.
The only reason I think I'm concerned is because the county's trying to come up with its own redistricting plan, and that's not going so well.
Well, that was
So-
more of a partisan plan, and it's also done. I think this process is not going to lend itself to the, the partisan breakdown that we saw with the county process, where
Okay.
clearly there were separate partisan agendas.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. So where we're left off then is we are going to send out the doodle poll, and you're going to be very diligent about getting us your dates and your availability so that we can set those public hearing dates, which I think is really important, and then we can start looking for the locations of them. Is there anything else that we wanted to touch base on before we depart for today?
What I'm wondering is, should we just go ahead and say that we'd like to use the 5 high schools? Or do we want to wait to decide that kind of thing?
Tony,
I feel fine about using the high schools. I think we should all, like, I don't know if we want to have like an informal vote, if that's okay with everyone, or if we want to, mix it up. I don't know what would be best.
I really think, as a person who's regularly gone to district meetings from county, for the legislature, I think they started doing it at the on center. I noticed that there was more people because it's such a more open space. So maybe both, whatever the schools that have the filtration. I'm not familiar with the schools anymore, if they have all had these filtration systems, because there are people who are not going to go virtual. They don't have access to internet or just not internet savvy like that. And so, and I noticed that was a large amount of crowd that did come to on center. And so could we do both, or can we consider the idea of both, because they're both open space? As much as I don't want to be an on center because it's not South Side, but it is at least large enough that we can accommodate spaciousness.
Well, isn't that one of the considerations, that we look at different sections of towns to have meeting? I mean, I know the high schools are conducive. The church might be another place which would gather up people from the South Side. And there may be other venues around town that we might have not thought of that would hold a number of people.
Now, I
Just
like it
saying.
church, but South Side, we do not have, we don't have that's downtown, as you know, and the high schools, unless I'm unfamiliar, I don't know a high school that's in our particular vicinity. I will
The
say,
closest to the south side would be either ITC, Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, ITC or Corcoran?
That's correct.
And
Okay,
We could also shoot for Clary Middle School, which is deep south side. Maybe Shea Middle School, which is, it's over on, off of Geddes. Trying to think. I like Hops. I think Hops is a better location for our purposes than King School, which is just a few blocks over, but
no, parking at King is miserable. We once had a meeting
right.
at King, and it was
I just think we'll get more
disaster.
attendees at Hops.
Yeah,
Well,
I see more attendees at Hops than at King. King is just,
I didn't mean to like get us into the details of it. All I was asking is if we should begin to think about, are these the locations that we should be
exactly.
considering? And if there are more locations, we do have a running list, I believe, on Google Docs that we should.
So
be
remind
adding
me
to the
again,
list.
because I don't have my little notebook with me. How many meetings do we have to have overall?
Well, we need to have 12 overall, 5 at first, 1 in each district, and then another 5, 1 in each district. And then, the 2 north and south of the highway. So it sounds like there's somewhat of a consensus or this, idea that maybe having a mix of school and other community settings would be what is best. So, maybe kind of saying either 2 or 3 school and then the others, community. And maybe that will be based on like when we're going to have a certain meeting in a certain district. If it's, the evening meeting, that might be better suited for a school or something like that, where, the weekend might be full at the church. So, we can kind of look at it based on when the meetings will be. There might be, make sense to put them at certain locations.
That sounds good to me.
Okay. Okay. Any other thoughts, concerns, or questions?
There was something in
meeting.
the agenda that John sent out about meetings in 2022. What was the thought there?
Oh, yes, these meetings, yes. Is Monday still good for everyone? I think we're gonna try to stick with the Zoom for right now. Is Monday still the best time? We switched it this week just to kind of give Jeff a chance to go through all of that stuff from the state that was released yesterday. So if we can go back to Mondays, if we stick with that, or if I don't know if the semester changes things for you, Graham, or for anyone else, or if we can just stay on Mondays.
Dr. King's observance is the next Monday.
Oh, that's true. Okay. So do we want something different for the 17th? Do we want to go like a Tuesday? Oh, I can't. We could do a different day that week, or
Yeah, I suggest we go Tuesday for the 17th so that we can all observe that holiday.
I have a conflict on Tuesday, the 18th.
I do as well.
I didn't even check my calendar. Let me see. I just thought that it would be nice to observe that holiday.
Could we move it out a week, or was that not cool?
How does Friday the 14th look? Because we Tuesday,
Friday the
Wednesday's bad for
14th.
Jeff. The 14th will put us almost 2 weeks from today.
I'm
That
That's
works
right.
for me.
I'm good to getting 4:30 on the 14th.
Yeah, that works for me as well.
So January 14th? Is that what we're looking
30,
at?
did someone say 4:30?
I'm good
He's just
after
saying-
4:30.
Oh,
No,
after.
I
At the
asked,
same
if-
time.
I'm sorry, I asked, hello.
Mm.
Sorry, I asked if January 14th is the date we're looking at.
Yes, but
It is
I
the date
work
that we're
until
looking at. We're
4:30,
talking
so
about time now. So we can
I'd
keep the
like to see-
time at, we can keep the time at
5:30.
5:30 to 7. Is it okay to move it to Friday, the 14th, 5:30 to 7?
I'm waving my little hand. Yes, that works for me.
Okay. So I know it's a Friday night, but you know, we can all, maybe we can like have some popcorn together or something. at the
Yeah.
end
Or
of our
have a
meeting.
cocktail.
Well, I didn't know if it was PC to say. Yeah, we can have a cocktail after the meeting. We'll end early. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's,
All right.
I can't get out of work before 5 o'clock, so an
Okay,
earlier
yeah,
meeting
so we'll-
time is not gonna make it for me.
We'll keep it at 5:30. The Friday the 14th. Okay. And then, but outside of that, it does seem like we always, Mondays are tough. It ends up being a holiday. Do we have anything after Martin Luther King that we need to be aware of?
President's Day, but that's a school break.
31st. Oh, Valentine's Day. So I don't know. I don't know where everyone stands on
Never
that.
go anywhere
Um,
on Valentine's Day. Service is late, they're out of flowers. It's like, give up the ghost.
Okay, so maybe it's something that I will ask everyone to think on if we want to. Wednesdays are definitely out, and we will keep the after work hours. But if we wanted to move to like a Tuesday or something else along those lines, I want you to think about that, and we'll revisit it at our next meeting, which will be Friday the 14th.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sounds good, thank
Okay.
you.
Good,
All right.
good.
From what I can see, Molly, it doesn't seem to be a conflict for each of the Mondays that follow
Okay.
through
Um,
February. Just so you-
perfect. Okay. All right, anything else? Questions, concerns, comments?
Well, I would just like to say that the timeline that John put up was like, okay, it's like finally focused me on, whoa, we got to get this done. So, you know, before it was very nebulous and we were still trying to feel our way around, but that timeline really said like, boom, we got to get down to business. So I appreciate that.
It does feel very real now, so we're
Very,
gonna get
very
down
real.
into the nitty gritty.
Absolutely.
Yes, okay, perfect. So be checking your emails, and really just, that's how we're gonna stay focused with one another. This will be a Zoom call, on January 14th.
One more question.
Yeah.
Do we have a sense for when we should expect to see something? I mean, I know that this is not your full-time job, but just wondering, like in the next few days, or when should we
Oh,
expect?
for the doodle poll.
Yeah.
Give us till the end of the week.
Okay.
Is that manageable, Jihan?
I know it's so.
That's the, yeah.
Do it. I can do it today.
Okay.
I'm free
Okay.
for the rest of the night, so I can do it today.
All right. We'll sort out some
Yeah.
dates, and get that out to you, and it will definitely be out by the end of the week.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions or concerns?
Somebody was squiggling in the background.
Any other squiggles?
Yeah, sorry, I'm shushing my dogs who are like, what are you doing? I hear people talking. How come
Right.
they're not
Okay.
petting me?
Well, we can adjourn the meeting so Maritza can get over to her dogs and give them all the love.
Well,
and
one of them
attention
is right
they
here.
deserve.
Yeah, they're never far. But they're
Okay,
like, I
perfect.
hear voices, you know, come pet me.
Absolutely. Okay.
All righty.
Do we
Great
have
meeting,
an,
guys.
do we have a, okay, yeah, well, goodbye. That
No,
sounds
no.
good. Goodbye.
Seriously.
My motion to adjourn.
Adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
Second. Yeah,
Tony and Marissa, perfect. Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Good
Bye-bye.
night.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
You too.
Bye.